This, speaking of the sense of being, I am constantly amazed at how this teaching sort of remains at odds with a lot of Advaita. A note yesterday from a longtime student and a good friend who's been through some of the same difficulties I've been through this year, same age. And he said, I'm so glad that you had the nerve to declare that in the absence of, with anesthesia, that there's no consciousness, and deep dreamless sleep, there's no consciousness. Doesn't mean that there's nothing at all. It just means that you can't touch it with a word. This simplicity, that there is a sense of being, which is different from a declaration of being, that the I am is a statement. I am, but there's an I and the am. So there is some level of, it's very, very light, I grant you, but there's a little bit of the taste of division there, of relativity versus the absolute. And there's no such thing. There's no such thing as relativity. That's our experience. And this is the land of experiencing. But thus far, I've been unable to find an experiencer. It's just, you can't pick it out like that. The simplicity that this is it, that there's nothing more, that there's nothing next, there's nothing left to achieve. This doesn't mean that the unit doesn't take actions. It does, even on the relative plane. It doesn't mean that the unit it is powerless, but only from the standpoint of being directed by a so-called Fred. An imaginary character can't actually do anything, can't move anything about it. And Fred is simply a combination of Fredness, which are these conditions. I had a good talk with somebody about this week, which is the conditions here that arrived through DNA. That's the conditioning, but then it meets conditions, and it begins. And there is there's not exactly a change, but there's a change in state, not for you or me, because there really isn't a you or a me. There's a sense of you and a sense of me, and I honor that, and I find it very enjoyable and very valuable. But the sense of me, the sense of being, is not the same thing as it's not the same thing as being. If I have a sense that it's raining and I raise the blinds right here and it's not, then I had a very strong sense that it was raining. But the truth is, it's not raining, it's dry. So if I am operating as if there's a storm out there, then I'm probably going to put on all kinds of clothes that I don't really need. But I've heard there was a storm, and I've felt like there was a storm upon occasion, and I want to prepare for the storm. And it's this preparation that catches us, because you can't be prepared enough for this particular storm, is what the mind is telling us. So we put on this set of clothes, and we put on a hat and a raincoat, and maybe we'll put on galoshes or something, and we're all prepared for a storm. And then we step out the door and suddenly we realize we're overdressed. So this is our dilemma, is that all of us are overdressed when it comes to non-duality. We're taught strict lines of approach. We're taught what it is, and it's different things for different schools, it seems. And we want to, but we don't want to be left out. We certainly want to reach this non-duality. We want to reach oneness, but you can't reach what you already are. There's just the recognition, oh, there's only this, and I am it. The problem is that the brain does not like simple answers. It wants complex answers. It wants to figure this thing out and really grasp it so that it can share it with others, because it can feel very sublime. But This can't be shared because there's just one thing going on, period. Is it feels like, for instance, that this was shared with me and that now I'm sharing this with you. And on one level, that's absolutely true. But on another level, I can't create oneness. There's just oneness. There's no I there that can create anything. It feels like it. It looks like it. We can talk about it. We can write books about it. It's just not true. There are sets of patterns, which again, these patterns I refer to as Fredness. And I'm thinking that Fred, an imaginary character, to discover the sense of being. And what is going to be my tool? Well, the only tool you have is the sense of being. You are the tool. You can't get to what you already are. So it's instead of getting to something, let's let everything drop away instead. And that's the way of this teaching, is it's not to add anything to you. You've already had that. Some of you have had it for decades. And what you notice is that no matter what gets added, it's just not quite enough, you know? And then we hear about another school or another book or another method. We go there, and once again, we end up in disappointment. Now, I'm not saying that this is the only way. I bite my tongue if it sounds like that. What I'm saying is that there are lots of ways that aren't ways. And this is one of the ways that is authentic. But it's the easiest way of all because you really don't have to do anything. You don't, I mean, I'm not saying that any practice like meditation or anything like that is great. It's great for the body. I recommend it. It's good for the mind. It calms the mind. It allows you to notice subtleties. And this thing, if anything, it is subtle. Profound, but subtle. So the very brightness of this room, the fact that there's a sense of a Fred, not very strong anymore. I don't pay much attention to it, but there is a sense of being Fred. There's a sense of being Fred who is delivering a talk to the sense of Dennis. It's his sense of Dennis. I have a sense of Dennis, but they're not the same. But in truth, this is you talking to you about you. If I were to ask you, this is a pretty good example. How do I get to the chair in my studio? And I asked you this, you're the teacher and I'm the student. And I ask you, so how do I get to the chair in my studio? And what are you going to say? Well, you're in the chair in your studio. You can't find it because you're in it. And it's like, I understand that. Thank you very much. And I'm much clearer now for that. Now, how do I find the chair in my office? And what am I going to say at that point? Well, look, you're already in the chair. You just have to recognize that you're in the chair. I know. Thank you so much for that. Now, how do I do that? And it's an endless complication of the simplest thing in the world. Can you notice that there's a sense of aliveness there, a sense of being? There's a sense of aliveness. So what can you use to find this sense of aliveness? What can you use to uncover it, so to speak? Well, we're looking for this elusive sense of being, because that's that sense of aliveness, is the sense of being. And the only tool that we have to look for is the sense of being. So the moment we start to look, we've already gone too far. It's not looking. Seeking is completely out of order because there's nothing to seek for and there's nowhere to go. What we are seeking for really is recognition of what already is. This is, and the brightness that is bringing you this, the light and intelligence that brings you, if you will, this feels like it's bringing it to you, but this really is you. It's just only the one thing going on. And this manifestation is sort of oneness. Oneness is sort of noneness in drag, right? So it's all dressed up. And prior to that, it was nothing. But you can't dress up nothing. So it's actually still nothing. So what you have done is waste your time with dressing this mannequin, so to speak. And we can't wait till the mannequin comes alive. I can't wait until the mannequin comes to know its true nature. I can't wait till I find out about my true nature. But the only thing I can use to look for true nature is true nature. So only when I look backwards is it discoverable. And when I say look backwards, it's just what we're doing here, attempting to do, is we're using attention, this immediate bright attention. Everybody knows what we call my attention. It's a universal declaration by the universal one thing, so to speak. So the sense of being is just that. It's a sense of being. And this is a sense of world. It's a virtual world, if you will. This is the dream in play. This is the perceived action, but there's still no thing. So what do we see when we see all these different things? When we just see all of the thousand things, as they call it sometimes. So what we see is ourselves. We're always looking from it, if you will, and we're always looking at it because there's no division anywhere. So there's no one to discover true nature. Only can discover true nature. And it only can discover it by simply noticing it. And there are a million different ways. Some of them are better than others. This one is very simple, and it's been very, very effective over the years. It's just noticing that this very sense of aliveness, what's noticing the aliveness is the aliveness. So there's nowhere to go. There's nothing really to do. It doesn't mean we won't do many things that they won't feel to be like we're making progress. But how do you make progress toward finding yourself? I mean, is it really progress, or are we dreaming up separation and then dreaming up a way to shorten that or eliminate that?